morning, everyone. Welcome to the UBC Learning Circle, hosted by the Center for Excellence in Indigenous Health. Today, we would like to welcome Denise Findlay, Chanel, and Mary to talk to us about Gathering Our Medicine, a unique program focused on Indigenous caregiver education. I'm not going to say any more about it because they're going to say a lot about it. So before we begin, I would like to acknowledge that I'm coming to you from the traditional, ancestral, unceded and occupied territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh people. I would also like to acknowledge the First Nations Health Authority for generously funding the UBC Learning Circle. So as a quick reminder to everyone participating today, the topics we cover can sometimes be sensitive or emotionally triggering. If that's you for today, please make sure you're looking after yourself. You need to talk to a friend, elder, counselor, family member, whatever that support system looks for you, I encourage you to indulge in that. So quick introductions from the Learning Circle side before I launch into it. My name is Cole. I'm from the Tsleil-Waututh First Nation, and I'll be facilitating the session today. Other Learning Circle team members kind of perusing the online chat box, and in the background are Cynthia, our production coordinator, and Kaylin, our program assistant. For those of you on Zoom, some of you have already done it, but if you feel so inclined, please introduce yourselves in the chat box, kind of stimulate the discussion and the questions. So I'm not going to do any introductions for Chanel and Mary. I'll let them do their thing. And Denise, I've introduced four times, something like that, on the Learning Circle. So she's a woman that needs no introduction, but suffice it to say, she's powerful, she's inspirational, and is a personal mentor to me, and has given me a lot to think about and reflect on in the ways with which I interact, not only with the youth of my own family, but generally the youth of my community. So I'm really excited to have Denise come back and join us and chat again. So with that, I will pass the mic over to, let's go with Denise and Chanel.
Thank you, Cole. Welcome, everybody. I see some familiar names popping up in the chat, so I'm really excited to be here. I'm gonna actually pass the baton over to my coworker, my colleague, Chanel, here to introduce herself, and we're just gonna like shift places here because we're sharing the same computer screen. We're gonna honor that physical distancing thing, right?
Good morning. My name is Chanel Bath. I come from Treaty 6 and Treaty 8 territories of the Cree Nation, and I'm really honored and grateful for this opportunity. Okay, thank you.
And Mary?
Good morning. My name is Mary Schernick. I'm Cree Métis from Saskatchewan on my father's side, Treaty 4 territory, and Austrian and Scottish on my mother's. I am grateful and honored to work today from home on the Katzie, Semiahmoo, and Kwantlen territory.
Beautiful, thank you. So we're going to, at this point, kind of switch gears, and we're going to present a short video on the program. That's right, Denise, yeah?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay, so bear with us for just a moment. We're going to pull that up for you.
It's a really exciting opportunity for us as Indigenous people to develop something for our caregivers of our Indigenous youth that is rooted in Indigenous ways of knowing and being.
I strongly believe in programs that come from community. I strongly believe that Indigenous people know what their needs are, and Indigenous people know how to heal themselves. That resilience is an innate part of who Indigenous people are.
We have many caregivers, I think, that they want to be in the space to support our youth, but they don't always have the tools. And I think that this is a program that provides the opportunity to have someone walk alongside you and to recognize that we're not asking you to be the expert, we're just asking you to be curious and be open to learning how to support your youth in the best way, so for their success, right? Recognizing that need for identity, that need for relationship, all of those pieces that, because of colonization and because of the systemic challenges that Indigenous families, youth, and we have faced as people, creating something that is going to provide opportunity to bring that back to balance.
The timing's really great for us to be able to develop something rooted in our own belief system that meets the real needs of our youth. And those needs are complex and unique because of the history that people have.
We really gathered communities, we gathered caregivers, we gathered youth, we gathered service providers to be able to develop the program and to gather the voices and the knowledge and the wisdom of communities, and to use that as our guide as to what communities needed. Understanding we're always in that process of information gathering and conversation around community needs.
It's going to strengthen the parents that we work with, and it's really something that we can give to the parents that they've been asking for. They're able to add in their own cultural traditions and rituals, and it's not so much us telling them this is the box you need to fit into. They kind of already have that set, and they can adjust it to their own parenting styles.
As an ally to Indigenous people and as someone who's been working in Indigenous community for about 6 years, the information that's provided and it being provided from an Indigenous person and from an Indigenous lens, it's invaluable. Something that we've needed for a really long time. It fills a huge void.
And what I'm really excited for participants in the Gathering Our Medicine program is the relational aspect that this program brings to caregivers of Indigenous youth, the topics and the weekly sessions that are going to be brought forward into communities, and how caregivers can utilize those teachings to be able to strengthen the relationship that they have with their youth. I'm also really excited about the community gathering and development that's going to come from this, the relational piece, the importance of the cultural integration into how the sessions and the program is developed. Participants sit in circle and not in a lecture style. There's a lot of visual aids and tools for facilitators and caregivers to have and to utilize throughout the program. All of those are the real strength of what Gathering Our Medicine will bring communities.
She used conversations, stories, personal stories. That was extremely meaningful to me. And it just drove home the idea of how we can create space for grief and anger. You can create a space, and you need to create that safe space so that our kids can express that emotion and feel safe. I'm just so extremely grateful to be a part of this.
So what Gathering Medicine does in essence is really empowers caregivers to see themselves as the answer to their youth, as opposed to feeling like they have to have all the answers and be in the problem-solving mode. The relationship is the answer. They are the answer.
Beautiful. That was beautiful. I feel very informed and a little bit awestruck to be in the presence of a couple movie stars here. So while we pull up the PowerPoint, maybe we'll kind of just, I had one quick question, I guess, and that is, if you could both kind of sum up, what would define this program compared to perhaps other Indigenous caregiver education programs out there, or just caregiver education programs in general? What would define and distinguish this program? I think we are. Just give me 1 second, sorry. Mary, can you, there we go.
Fine, I will. But I want Denise to go first, though, please.
Really? Do you want me to?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you know, I think what we've done here, I mean, this has been a collaborative effort. It's come together really quickly and very beautifully. But I think the reason that has happened is because you have a whole lot of people that are bringing many years of experience, lived experience, both personally and professionally, to the table. And it was the synthesis happened really. The timing is right, and when things are meant to happen, they're meant to happen. So a lot has gone into this, but I think what makes it different is that we are really, what we've aimed to do is to create a universally sort of accessible structure that is not prescriptive, it is not deterministic. We're really offering a structure for communities to use that encourages those folks who would ultimately facilitate this program in any given community or organization to look to the culture, the land base of the people that they're serving. If it's a youth from a particular community, where are they from in the world, and what are their teachings, and how do we go and seek out the knowledge keepers in a given community to learn about the culture and to I don't even like to say utilize, because that's not the right word, but how is culture naturally healing and naturally therapeutic? And so we've tried to integrate, often what I've been saying lately, this is about a way of being in the world. And so our old people didn't necessarily know the science, nor did they need to know the science behind something. They had their own science. They had their own ways of knowing what worked and why something worked. And if you think about you know, the powers of observation and lived experience being passed down generationally, you know, why is a river bath so powerful in terms of a therapeutic process for somebody? Why, what makes it powerful? And then looking to the existing science and the research around resilience, attachment, some of the new science around emotions, and looking at how the science is now validating what our old people knew in the long ago. So we're really integrating and trying to walk in both worlds in a way in which our traditional knowledges are not being eclipsed by Western evidence-based practice, but we're utilizing those new understandings to say, hey, look, this is valid, this is really important, and this, you know, we know that evidence, some of the more scientific approaches or contemporary approaches to healing don't necessarily always work for our people and for our youth. And I think first and foremost, this is rooted in relationality and understanding that relationship and our relationship to each other and everything is the first and most important aspect. It's got to be our come from. And so I think that I think I've articulated that. Sometimes I feel like I'm tripping over my tongue, and there's a lot to be said about this. But I think that's really what the appeal is. And I think when people are getting a little taste of this, they're really excited to say, oh my goodness, this is not a prescriptive program. This is not like do this and rigid. It's incredibly flexible, adaptive. It's a living, breathing thing. And it's meant to be brought to life by the folks who are facilitating it along in partnership with the knowledge keepers in the community that they're serving. How'd I do, Mary?
You did perfect. That's why you should go first. I can kind of speak to what makes it different, because this is a project that is funded through the Ministry of Children and Family Development in British Columbia. And what makes this different than other programs that we have coming out of the ministry is exactly all of those points that Denise just mentioned, and the idea that in the ministry we have what's called the Aboriginal Policy and Practice Framework, and we really utilize that as our guide and our tool to be able to lead us on the journey to how we got where we are. It talks about gathering the circle, listening, and then keeping the circle strong. And so it is all about that relational aspect, and looking at how we serve our Indigenous children, youth, families, and communities in a way that is meaningful. And so in terms of like the ministry aspect, this is definitely along the lines of the vision of the ministry and the vision of the Maples Adolescent Treatment Center, and where we want to go in serving the needs of our kids and families.
Great. Yeah, beautiful. It sounds to me like we're kind of trying to create a scaffolding or a structure that makes space, that creates space for Indigenous protocols, teachings to be acknowledged and valued and accessible to caregivers, kind of regardless of where they're coming from, but also not being careful not to pan-indigenize as a program, which I think is really important, and I appreciate that. So I think we have a PowerPoint to go through, right? So we'll just pull that up right now, unless anybody else had something to add to that question.
Okay.
Cool. Okay.
Right. I have to acknowledge that Erin Nelson Moody, my good friend and neighbor, Splash, contributed to the look and feel of all of the materials. He did the artwork and the symbols that we have that are developed as part of the program, and I'm really appreciative of that. He really got the essence of it and was able to capture the feel and the feeling behind it, which I think was really, really important. I thought I wanted to start by warmly welcoming everybody. Thank you for being here. It is a great privilege to be invited into these places and spaces to share in any way, shape, or form. But I think, as Mary was saying, this is a program that is being born out of MCFD, and it is very different. So this is a wonderful opportunity for us to highlight some of the good work that's been done by a lot of people. And I wanted to start by sharing this quote. I did a lot in my research when I was sort of developing curriculum. I researched and read through all my books. I spent a lot of time finding the right words to capture things. And I thought, this is such a beautiful quote by Chief Dan George, because it really says it all. And I think it really takes us out of the more medical model into a more Indigenous way of knowing and being and understanding who we are as humans. And bringing us back to those intuitions in terms of relationships, and especially where youth are concerned. And I will often say that when we see youth that are really struggling, chances are there's a story of a broken heart behind that, and healing that is required. But the quote goes, "My friends, how desperately do we need to be loved and to love? Love is something you and I must have. We must have it because our spirit feeds upon it. We must have it because without it, we become weak and faint. Without love, our self-esteem weakens. Without it, our courage fails. Without love, we can no longer look out confidently at the world. We turn inward and begin to feed upon our own personalities, and little by little, we destroy ourselves. With it, we are creating. With it, we march tirelessly. with it and with it alone. Whoops, something popped up and excuse my view here. Will that go away in a sec? Can you see that?
With it and with it alone, we are able to sacrifice for others. Chief Jan George.
And I think that that really captures the essence of what we're talking about here, is that we're really trying to get back to this more human understanding, intuitive understanding of what happens to all of us in life at some point, you know, along the way. And coming at healing and working with our youth from this understanding of these preeminent universal human needs that we all share, all of us. Do you want to read this one, Mary?
Yeah, so this is the vision that was created. So in the development of Gathering Our Medicine, we called together an advisory circle, and that is a group of Indigenous leaders and knowledge keepers throughout the province. And this is the vision, sorry, that they came up with. Through Indigenous ways of knowing and being, the Gathering Our Medicine Caregiver program supports the journey of healing and strengthening relationships between Indigenous children, families, and communities.
Beautiful. Can you go back to that? Sort of cool. Do you mind just going back to that one? Because I just want to say, we use the term caregiver, but I think let's unpack that for a minute, because I think when people hear caregiver, they automatically go to, well, are we just talking about children in care? But it's an inclusive term. We choose caregiver because when we think about Indigenous youth, our youth, they are generally and should be naturally embedded in a village of relationships that make up their community. And that includes everybody that is responsible for raising that child or youth. So that doesn't just mean the biological parents. That could be grandparents, that could be aunts and uncles, that could be extended family and community members. That could include teachers. That sometimes could include a social worker or another caregiver. But we're looking at this as the village of relationships that a youth has. And part of our hope is that this program would enable folks to be on the same page where a given youth is concerned in terms of meeting their needs. Do you want to read this one, or do you want me to read this one, Mary?
I can do it. So an Indigenous approach to caregiving is innately relational and is based on these fundamental understandings that caregiving is instinctive, heart-led, and must be nurtured in relationship. It is about continuity, not separation, and that's always the focus. Relationships are forever and continue on even after death. Our youth community is most naturally equipped to provide care and must be supported to do so. And becoming a caregiver parent is a sacred rite of passage. Preparation and support for them is needed before, during, and after caregiving. So I think this is really about that ongoing nurturing and relationship that happens throughout. And with Gathering Our Medicine, the perspective is more youth focused, but I think what Gathering Our Medicine brings is that perspective throughout the time of like when from pregnancy all the way to after death. That relational aspect is always ongoing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you probably, when you were listening to or watching the video that we created, you would have heard me, talk about it, is supporting caregivers to see themselves as the answer, not needing to have all the answers. And I think that's why that's probably one of the first points there, is that it's instinctive, heart-led, and must be nurtured in relationship. And if we think about, if we just reflect for a moment on the impacts of colonization and intergenerational trauma, is that we do have generations of parents that and I'll speak even for myself as a parent, as a mother of two boys who have some special needs, that the waters can get very muddy, and it can be very easy for us to prioritize the experts in regards to our children. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying we don't need that expertise, but when it starts to dilute our belief in ourselves, that our relationship and what we have to offer our children, our youth, is not enough, then that becomes problematic. So this is meant to bolster that kind of confidence in caregivers and parents, that, you know what, life is a wild ride, and we sometimes don't know what's around the next corner, but you know what, we're together and we're in it together, and we'll get through it together. And that's really the most important thing, and that we can lean into, and our cultural practices will bolster us and provide us with the container needed to survive very difficult things. If that makes sense. Hopefully
it does.
Yeah.
Yes.
Good. Chanel, do you want to say anything? Chanel's hiding in the background. Here, let's trade.
Sure. I guess I could just speak to one of the last points that Denise was making about parents and caregivers seeing themselves as the answer. And I know that in my personal work with youth, a lot of times I have encountered and supported parents who were really struggling and were looking for the answer to be external. And so this is really exciting to me, and it just feels like a really good fit for the work that we're doing here at the Maples, and just my personal experience in working with families. I can see how this is going to really speak to them.
Beautiful.
Absolutely. And I think, if I may, just maybe not a question, but more a reflection, I think it's important from my non-expertise perspective, but to recognize that there's, when we look at a youth and their kind of circle of care around them, right, to recognize that, particularly when it's well, not particularly, but that there can be trauma on all sides of that circle, and I like that this program seems to be approaching it from a space of healing and care for all of the circles, so that the youth benefits from that. Do you know what I mean? Not taking pieces in isolation, not saying this is what you do with youth, but rather, how can we work on ourselves to improve the relationship, is the vibe that I'm getting. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think often what can happen, and sometimes this is necessary, depending on the situation, but healing happens outside of the context of the village and outside of the context of family, and we're extracting the child out or the youth out and placing them with this external resource. Well, what happens when they go back? Has that transformed the whole? Has there been healing for everyone involved? And so I think that's one of the gaps that this program is aiming to meet, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. And I'll just flip to the next slide here.
I trust you, Denise.
Thank you.
Okay.
He trusted. I trust you too. Okay, so there, I'll go through. A caregiver's role is to provide the conditions necessary for the child's true spirit to emerge spontaneously. Warm relationship, safety, and eldership. So I think what I'll do is I'll just touch on each of these as I go through them. I love this one too, because it's very different than this idea that there is this preconditioned, predetermined goal that we need to meet with our youth, that they need to become this and they need to do this and they need to learn this, and we need to get to work at making all of that happen. We're really supporting caregivers to be able to have insight into what the conditions are for true maturation, emotional, not just intellectual development, which we are extremely focused on in our society, and that's important. We need the cognition, and we need our thinking brains, but and this is out there in the literature, and you can look at this, and people are talking about this more and more, is that we've neglected the spirit, we've neglected the heart, these other aspects of ourselves that need to be developed for us to have balance in life. And so we're supporting sort of a different kind of approach, stepping away from, I mean, and I find when parents realize, oh my goodness, you just have to create the conditions, you need to offer a youth an unconditional invitation to exist, warmth, let them see the twinkle in your eye, make sure it's safe for them no matter what they come to the table with, that you're there to receive it. And that kind of eldership and that kind of confidence that says, you know what, I'm not sure what's going to happen next, but we've got this, and I've got you, and we're in it together, and it's going to be okay. These sound like really simple things, but relationally speaking, in a relationship with a youth, this creates the conditions for a lot of really wonderful things to happen. And especially when we're talking about traumatized youth, where healing is essential. We can't just push into learning and trying to, get them somewhere they're not ready to be. We have to resort to the beginning. I see you're shaking. Mary, if you want to add anything, or Cole, if you have a question, and I'll just go through these. And if you want to jump in, Chanel. And no? Okay. Nope. Anything?
Well, I think I would connect that to, we're just doing an online training right now, and on Thursday of last week, we finished session 5. And in that training, we talked about the invitation to exist, and Denise likened it to having an invitation for a size. And so she said, I was a size 14, and the invitation for me was only a size 10. And so how do you contort and how do you try and kind of deny pieces of yourself in order to fit into that invitation? And I know that a lot of our participants who are part of our training, afterwards, I received calls from my colleagues and friends, and we were just all really thinking about what is the size invitation that we received growing up? What is the invitation size that we have for the young people in our life? And not just the young people, but the relationships that we have in our life with our partners, with our parents, with our siblings, all of that sort of a thing. So I can really see how I'm making all of these connections as I'm going through and learning. And so I just thought I'd share that. Thank you.
Thanks, Chanel. Beautiful. Yeah. I found that's profound. Right? This idea that one of the biggest and most important things we can do for a youth is let them see that no matter what they come to the table with, to the relationship with, it's welcome. It's welcome, and there's warmth there. The next one is emotional expression, not regulation. Some people go, what do you mean not regulation? That's such a big term out there. In all its forms are welcomed and facilitated through rituals and rites of passage that make up the youth culture. And a lot of what we talk about in the online sessions we've been doing are around rituals and rites of passage, either ones that exist already in the community or supporting parents and caregivers to develop rituals within their family that would carve out the time and space for emotional expression. And if we were raised like I was, with parents or grandparents and generations of people who were conditioned not to feel, because feeling is a luxury, and when we have to live through tough times, when we experienced trauma, we don't necessarily feel our emotions. There hasn't been room for expression, and yet we know now that emotional expression is essential to healing, to resilience, to neuroplasticity, and that we have there's such a wide array of beautiful, different in each culture, rites of passage and rituals that just automatically create the conditions for us to get our feelings back and to find expression, whatever that is, and not for the purpose of regulating that emotion, but for the purposes of developing that emotion. So we have, we develop this kind of emotional intelligence, the spirit of the youth, a whole person that's has empathy and can reflect, and all these virtues we look for. And this is whole person development. And I know when I think about some of the elders that I look to for teachings in my own community, tears are welcome. They are normalized. They are invited. Frustration, anger, aggression, there's room for that. There's a place for that. There's ways that we can process this kind of stuff. It's important, it's invited, and it's facilitated. And as caregivers, we need to help facilitate this for our youth, because who else will lead them into being mature and taking up a relationship with the complexity of who they are? Very different than self-regulation. But there's more. We can't cover all that today, so you got to get the hook with me. I go off on tangents. And anything, Mary, you want to add before I go to the next one?
No, I think you captured it perfectly.
Awesome. And I love this too. There are stages to life not dictated by age, but by readiness on the part of the youth. Each of these stages must be led by the caregiver until the youth becomes an adult. And when we think about the different rites of passage that we go through in life, there's many. And when I think of one in particular, going from a child to an adolescent, which my son is, you can see how different, if you reflect back on what a challenging time that is and how confusing it is to be a young person, especially in the world today, that there are practices that were in place that we can draw on today to support the moving from one state to the next, and that this isn't a one-shot deal. We are always, from the time we're born to the time we pass, we're moving from one state to the next, and there's support needed for that. And a caregiver, we can't just say, well, you're 13, you should be going through puberty right now. Well, there might be some things, physical signs of that, but there may not be emotional readiness there. And so my teachings certainly have been that you must know the youth, you must have a close relationship, you must know them from the inside out in order to know what is needed. So it's never going to be this, what's the term I'm looking for? Prescriptive, never prescriptive.
And I think the part of that is that that's okay, right? Like making mistakes is okay. Not having the answers is okay. And because there is that community, I think of myself, I became a mother for the first time at 17, and then I had my third by the time before I was 25. And now in my early 40s, I have developed myself and my parenting and my ability to be a better mother and auntie and friend in all of my relationships through my experiences and the space. And I look at each of my children and how my parenting has changed for each of them, given where they're at, and then also what I learned and who was able to come in and support me through that.
Beautiful. Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because it's not about being perfect. It's about knowing that we're in it together, and that we have people we can lean into for help, and we can ask for the direction, and we can find our way through it. And that's what life is all about, right? No, you're good. I love this too. I love this one. That when a youth is struggling, we look to their relationship with the adults, the land, the animals, the ancestors as the best point of intervention. So those are the places we look. What is missing? What's not happening for them? Who do they need in their life at that moment? What is needed in a relationship? How can a relationship to the land and the kind of continuity that we can get from our connection with land, animals, and the ancestors, there's a continuity and a consistency there that is rock solid. And so when we talk about attachment and we talk about relationship, when we're looking at this through an Indigenous lens, we're not just looking at our human relationships. We're looking at our relationship with everything. And that's the beauty of it. Because sometimes our human relationships, things happen and people aren't accessible to youth for whatever reasons, physically, emotionally, psychologically, but there's all these other places we can look to provide this sense of comfort, continuity, teachings. And that to me, it opens up all kinds of possibilities for our young people.
Yeah, thank you. I apologize if I'm not just like, bursting forth with questions, but as is often the case when I have a conversation with Denise, I find myself more kind of reflective and introspective than I usually am. We do have a question from the audience though, and I thought now would be a good time to kind of interject with that. Melissa asks, I really connect with the idea of gathering medicine and the idea that you're empowering caregivers to seek the answers from within rather than externally. As an elementary teacher, how might this work in a classroom community setting? How can we support our Indigenous and non-Indigenous learners and engage them in these practices without othering or appropriating teachings and protocols? So it's a bit of a multi-layered question there. Yeah.
I don't know if I have the answer to that one. I mean, I think there's people out there living examples of this that are happening. I think that there are people out there that are leading the way, especially in terms of education and what Indigenous education looks like in the classroom. But for me, I think it's important. I mean, we talk about the idea of tokenism. We use that word. I'm just going to point it out, put it out there, is that, we don't want it to look like that. We want it, we don't want it to be an add-on. It has to be a paradigm shift. And I think if you have educators who understand that and who are willing and curious and authentic, like Mary said, it's not about doing it perfectly, but it's about really looking to the knowledge keepers in a given community to share their teachings and not trying to fit it in a box of what we or what the education system thinks it should look like. It's about being transformed, and this needs to transform our educational system. It needs to, Indigenous knowledges, we need to be transformed by that across the board. And I think that that's what's happening to some extent now as a result of the work of many people who suffered before us. That's how I would answer it, but I'd be curious to know how Mary would answer that, because I'm sure she has something to say.
Well, I think the point about engaging community is first and foremost, and the knowledge keepers and the elders and the people in which you're there to support. The other thing I was thinking was just how we at the Maples have brought Indigenous and non-Indigenous people together in meaningful ways. So we developed a 9 a.m. morning drum group, and every morning we get together, well, not during COVID, but we get together and we drum and we sing, and people bring songs that they've been given permission to sing or that come from their community. And it is a way, I really believe in experiential learning. This has nothing to do with gathering our medicine. I'm just running off about the last part of that question. And and really about Chanel is really good at bringing in people who are responsible with those teachings, to bring them in, to come in and do that. So that's my quick answer.
Yeah, thank you both. I think from what I'm hearing, right, like kind of regardless of whether or not we're talking about an elementary school setting or any other, it's important for all of us to take active steps in creating spaces for Indigenous knowledges to exist. That doesn't mean that we have to be the vehicle with which it comes. In fact, I would argue often that it is not. We simply make space and allow it to be heard and respected in those spaces. So in this context, in a classroom, right? And I think that was echoed by several people in the chat as well, in terms of kind of looking to elders and bringing in community to see that those protocols and those teachings being passed on in this kind of more Western setting, right, in the classroom. Chanel, did you have something to add before I cut you off there?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So we're doing our 8 weeks online, like our COVID training right now. And what Denise has done is invited elders, knowledge keepers to every single session that we have. And so in that way, I think we're able to model to our people who are interested in gathering our medicine, people who plan to be facilitators of the program in their communities, what that looks like to create the space, and then for the sharing of elders and knowledge keepers and cultural teachings, and then to be able to connect that to ourselves personally and our work with the youth as well. So I just wanted to add that. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Chanel. Did anybody else have anything to add, or should we move on with the slide? Okay. Okay.
So this is a overview of the 8 sessions. Now I think we should probably share sort of how we got to where we are right now under the pandemic circumstances. So we had developed all of this, and then we spent a couple of days working with 3 pilot communities. We had facilitators ready to go, and what that really looks like to become a facilitator is that you go through the in-person experiential sort of intensive training, which is evolving, obviously, and then we support you to deliver the program in a community setting, and the facilitators are provided with like ongoing support in the form of supervision and a guide and slides. And so we were all ready to go with that. And then of course COVID hit, and the need for physical distancing happened, and we were dead in the water for a while. We're like, okay, well, this isn't going to happen. And so we quickly, I do feel like spirit has moved in this project, because a lot of the things that have happened have just, it's like, okay, we're going to do this, and we're going to do, it's happened quickly. But we moved to the online format, and we offered this online 8-week sessions online as an introduction to the program for anyone just curious, interested, maybe wanting to bring it into their organization or community, or folks interested in becoming a facilitator. And so we've had a wonderful group of people, inclusive of some folks from the Maples, some folks from the Ministry, Child and Youth Mental Health, people working with Indigenous youth throughout the province. We've had a group of about 50 people consistently every week. We're going into week 6 this Thursday, and we are running another online series starting June 4th. And if you're interested in that, you can check out our website. Maybe we can go to that at the end and show people, Cole, if that's a possibility. But we quickly shifted gears. So although the online component wasn't part of the original plan, it seems to be a big hit, and it's fun. We have knowledge keepers come every week. We've had some really wonderful guests. That in some cases we've just sort of allowed to take over the whole session, because what they've been sharing is just so beautiful, and it's been great. But this is the sort of direction. Each week we're imparting different teachings, but we are encouraging the relational aspect first and foremost, and that means that there are teachings there's insight to be provided, but facilitators are supported to make and create a safe space for caregivers in which they can find some rest, in which they can express their emotions, in which their stress level can come down in regards to whatever's going on for them in relationship with their youth, and to get back to the basics and to get out of the complexity and out of the frustration of it all. And we've tried to model that as much as we can online with the professional group as we've gone. Anything you want to add to that, Chanel? Do you want? Yeah. Should we go over this, or you guys can read this? You'll be able to see it on our website as well. Yeah. Mary, anything you want to add to that?
I just seen somebody, when Chanel had said COVID training, that somebody had asked, what is this? And so it was exactly that, the transition from in-person to online. It's not actually training about COVID. And so, yeah, and then somebody asked about joining later, and I think everything's through the website. So you'll be able to get connected with Denise through there to ask those questions and get them answered. But yeah, I think we really went through the weeks and really looking at, when we engaged with community, what they were saying they wanted and needed, and these align with that. And what is really important in gathering our medicine is that the participation and the involvement of youth. I think that as much as we possibly can, we want to not have to do gathering our medicine for generations and generations. We want to kind of provide training and knowledge and information to the caregivers, and also through to the youth. And so I think that is also another part in which the involvement of youth, especially in week 8, that why it's different.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Cole. Go ahead.
I was just going to comment on that, and I think even just the existence of the nature of the program would, you could almost measure the success of it by how these knowledges, teachings, protocols are being passed down through generations, right? If you needed to consistently kind of go every whatever it is, every 10 years, whatever, then you might, you would take a look at that and say, okay, well, why aren't these being stuck through in communities and families and stuff? What's not working, right? So I think that model of looking at helping caregivers through a difficult, maybe not through a difficult time, but helping them to kind of find their value and stuff, you'd hope that would then kind of reflect forward in generations to come. Or I might be off base there, if someone could correct me. But.
No, that's exactly what I meant.
Yeah, absolutely. I did want to say too, one of the things I think that we talked about that would differentiate this program is that in week 8, the first time we get together with caregivers in a group, we're letting them know that week 8 is going to be an honoring our youth ceremony, and that they will be encouraged to start thinking about who from the community needs to be part of that, which elders, which knowledge keepers, what might that look like? And that is going to be an opportunity to bring caregivers and their youth together to celebrate and honor the relationship that exists between them.
Awesome. So I just actually had a couple things to say here. Firstly, for everybody that's been watching, we'll post the links to the Gathering Our Medicine website in the chat throughout the session here. But in addition, we'll make sure that we have all those hyperlinks. We'll go out when you're emailed about the session, as well as if you stumble on it on YouTube afterwards. So there'll be plenty of links as to how to find where you can access this training. So don't worry about that. But then secondly, we had another question came in, and I think it kind of sits nicely here. As I'm reviewing the week 3 in particular, stages of development and getting unstuck. So we had a question come in that was about kind of how do you get a connection with a youth who has reached a stage of running away or of shutting down or of not necessarily investing in relationships with adults for whatever reason. And I can, I think we can all envision situations where that happens. So how do you go about building that first relationship, or what would the program?
Well, that's very common in our peer-oriented world, and a world where we are not seeing ourselves as the answer, and we are shuffling our kids off to the next and the next and the next person and professional. That is more common than not. I'm always overjoyed when I see. I actually heard Mary say the other day, and I didn't tell you this, and I should have acknowledged you. You said that you're your daughter's best friend, and I think that is so beautiful. And actually, that's how it's naturally meant to be. Our kids are meant to have friends, but their parents need to matter more. Their grandparents need to matter more. Their aunties and their uncles need to matter more. Their families need to be at the core, the place that they run to and that they go to. Now, this is the thing: is it's really hard to give a answer a hypothetical question like that, because you need to contextualize it. You need to understand what's going on. What the history is, where a child is running to, if they're running to, because children don't run away from home, they run to home, whatever they feel home is. And so the hope, though, is that it can always be repaired. There is hope always, no matter what. And there's reasons for everything. And we can explain a lot of things if we know how to look at it, if we're looking at it through the right lens. So for me, the most important thing, and we talk about pointing your arrow a lot in this program, and I think that's one of the biggest messages up front, is that we have to have our arrow pointed in the right direction as caregivers. It's not about moving into action or problem solving or figuring it out. But if you have a caregiver that has their heart is breaking because that connection with their child or their youth has been lost and they're suffering, the first and most important step in that dance is for them to have their arrow pointed in the direction of getting that relationship back and healing that relationship. Because we flow from this place. If we're just thinking about disciplining or teaching or fixing, that's a very different come from place. So it's about holding caregivers in this place of what is your deepest longing for this youth, and now let's find a way. Because you know what, where relationships are concerned, it's not linear. It is a dance, and it's a dance that's unique to every caregiver and a particular youth. And you could have one dance between a mom and a dad, and a different dance, or one dance between a mom and a youth, and a different dance between the father and the youth, and a different dance between the grandparent and the youth. So we have to contextualize it. So I can't answer a question like that, but I can give that piece. And I think in session 3, when we're talking about stages of development, giving the insight so that a given parent can see from the inside out with their youth and get a sense of what might be going on. Where did things maybe get off track, and where do they begin? What's the entry point for them to start to reestablish the warmth, the connection, to invite their youth back into relationship with them, into a relationship in which the youth can receive the kind of nourishment that they need to get from their adults. I feel you might have something to say. Do you? No, okay.
I was just thinking about the exercise in which we points our arrow.
Do you want to talk about it?
Okay. So one of our, at the beginning of the program, Denise sort of modeled one of the exercises that could happen with the caregivers, and it's been done with all of our professionals who attend our weekly session virtually. And the exercise is about pointing our arrows. And so we talk about what longing do we have for the youth in our life. And so when I was thinking about it, I was thinking about my nephew, and he's 13 years old. And you know, a lot of the things that I strategize and I think of in order to support him, when Denise framed it as what am I longing for and how am I going to get there? All of the actions, all of my my plans, they looked different because in response to just that idea of pointing your arrow. So I just wanted to share that.
It's the intention. It's the intention and setting that intention and being guided by that intention.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even reflecting on your answer, I think the way that you contextualize what's happening, you know, in your own mind and how you look at what's occurring is fundamental to how you then approach, and I can see why that would be the case. So thank you very much for that answer, Denise. I really appreciate it. We have a few other questions. I'm just going to burn through them quickly. Stephanie asking, where and how can one take this program? Currently, it's offered online. It'll start again on June 4th. Registration will be on their website, and we'll provide all the links to make sure that you can do that. Did I miss anything there, team? No, that sounds good. Okay. So then the next question, which I'm actually, it's one that came from community, but I'm also interested in kind of who's learning the 8-week online training, like currently, who's participating? Yeah. And who is it open to at this point? Is there any kind of background knowledge that you need to have to get into it?
Do you want to share, Mary? Do you want to answer that one?
I think you can talk about who's like currently in the group, and that would be a good indicator.
Yeah, so we have, it's a wonderful group, by the way. We have about 50 people consistently every week. And so we have a mix of folks. We have Maple staff in the program. We have strengthening family workers, preservation workers from community, different communities in the program. We have child and youth mental health, outreach workers, clinicians in the program. We have some people from DCH in the program, people from NCFD. So it's a really, we have people from forensics in the program, youth forensics. We have some psychologists, some psychiatrists. So we've got this really lovely diversity in the group. And it's been quite a lovely experience, hasn't it? Yeah, yeah.
I think like ultimately so this online training is an introduction to gathering our medicine, but then also is an invitation to get more knowledge about the program, and then decide if you want to use the training and the group in your community. So having the community decide who takes the training is probably the best path forward, to have each community decide is it going to be, it can be an aunt, it can be family, and so it doesn't necessarily have to be professionals, but in the online training, so this is just a temporary measure because the online training, then the one that's going on currently, and then the one on June 4th, because the hope is that the Maples is a provincial program, and so we serve the entire province, and so we really want to get the program out to families. And the 2 online trainings that we're able to do is opening up a space and opportunity for people to know what it is, to ask questions, and then to get excited like we are.
And actually, one of the facilitators that was ready to go for a pilot when this all happened, the COVID thing happened, she just called us last week and she says, you know what, I just think I want to try, we're doing things online with our parents, I just want to give that a try. And Chanel and I were like, great, we'll support you, let's do it. So we're not looking for perfection. It's we're all learning together, it's evolving, nothing's written in stone, but yeah, I think we've got a really nice structure to work with here that allows for a lot of great things to happen.
Awesome. Thank you both, or thank you all. So we'll go to the next slide here.
There it is. That's the exercise. You want to talk to us? Well, what was I thinking when I put this in here? So this is one of the slides from session 1 that I included, and this is one of the things that we start with in terms of helping support the caregivers to get their arrow in the right direction. And so we walk them through a contemplative exercise, you know, it's sort of a visualization where they hold an image of their youth that they care for. Whether you're a parent or a professional or whatever, finding that youth who you have a deep longing for them, and having them think about what that longing is. And then we, in the online one, we had people type 1 or 2 words in the chat about what their deepest longing was. And I know that in the in-person training that we did, you know, it evoked tears in folks, because I think it gets people back in touch with their heart and what lies deep in their heart, and not necessarily in our head. And we get back in touch with what's most important. And we've got these pictures of these different medicines, and you'll catch me saying this a lot. You know, all we have to do is look to our own teachings. All the medicine is there. You know, there is not a pill for a broken heart. That's the thing. There's not medication for a broken heart. But there's so much, if we look to the culture that we're from, and even other cultures, and borrowing traditions from other cultures. I know that I've got things I've borrowed and that I carry, teachings that I carry from places I've been, that have been medicine for me. And it's powerful. It's very, very powerful.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you. I was going to say that I think, kind of regardless of where you're coming from, these sorts of reflective exercises are helpful for everyone, kind of Indigenous or non-Indigenous, and in community or out of community, or being a teacher, or you know, whatever the context is that you're coming into this webinar today. I think this short reflective exercise is important in centering, and like you guys have said many times, pointing your arrow towards what you want most, and making sure that you're focusing on that in your relationship with your youth, right? I apologize if I seem rambling, but as you're talking about this, I actually kind of thought about, well, I put my nieces and my nephews, as Denise knows, I have 8 of them under the age of 5. And I tried to kind of bullet them all through my head really quickly and think, okay, well, what do I want out of that relationship? And it's what do I want them, what do I want for our relationship together with all of them separately? You know what I mean? It's given me something to think about. So thank you very much. I'll just check next slide unless somebody else had something to say. No? Okay, so we'll just go to the next slide.
Yeah, let's go through these pieces here. This is one of the slides that there's slides that are provided for facilitators. There's a kit sort of for each session. It's not prescriptive. Facilitators don't have to follow them, but it's nice to have something as you're learning to cue in different things that one might want to say. And we talk about what I just talked about, which is, what does it mean to gather our medicine? What does it mean to look to the land base of our own community, or the community we're working with, or a youth that we're supporting, and really get curious about what's there, and starting to practice these things in an authentic, sincere way. We're bringing in the teachers that need to be brought in, and the knowledge keepers that need to be brought in. I borrowed this term from Wade Davis. He talks about wayfinding, and he has a book called The Wayfinders, Why Ancient Wisdom Matters in a Modern World. And I've read that as part of developing this. And I love wayfinding. He talks about the Aboriginals in Australia, and how when they were going somewhere, they have these song lines. I found this fascinating. They sing their way to places. Some of you may already know that, but this is part of an Indigenous. This is actually, in essence, an Indigenous way of knowing and being. It's not a map. They know their way by singing. They sing their way. There's certain songs, and they know their way by singing their way there. And to me, if we can hold caregivers in a place of you know, walking alongside their youth in this way, finding their way side by side, saying we're on a journey and we're going to get there, and all sorts of things are going to happen on the way, and it may be fraught with tears and it may be fraught with frustration, but you know what? I've got you, and we're together, and we're going to get there. We're going to get there. It's a very different approach than the pressure that our parents are put under in terms of performance and achievement for kids. And I mean, even with the online schooling right now, I was relieved because I was getting all these emails about both my sons, who are both special needs, and you know, doing their assignments, and I was feeling the pressure, and I emailed the principal, and she responded, and she says, you know, Denise, this is not about academic achievement right now. We're not concerned about this. What we're concerned about is a sense of community and connection. I went, okay, wonderful, you know, but it's it's about coming alongside and finding our way to a youth side and having them feel not alone in the world as we navigate the ups and downs, and that we will eventually get there, and all sorts of interesting and wonderful and difficult things are going to happen along the way. And it's about being the answer, not having all the answers. And I can't tell you, in my work with families, parents usually come with a million questions about what do I do then, and what do I do now, what about this and what about that. It's like, you don't need to know. Sometimes there are things in life we just simply don't have the answers for, and it's okay. We are the answer. I don't know what's going to happen, but I tell you, I've got you. I'm not leaving you. We're going to get through it. That type of thing. Looking to the relationships, the place we gather our medicine. Courage, I think, is so important to face the emotional ups and downs of the journey. And we talk about courage a lot. It takes a lot of courage to be a parent, to be a caregiver, to face life in a way in which you're embracing it in all of its, you know, complexity. And parents need to have someone, you know, cheering them on. Caregivers need to have someone cheering them on to be able to receive whatever comes their way along the caregiving journey. And that we don't need to teach people how to give care. We don't need to teach skills. It's not skill development. We don't teach resilience or parenting or caregiving. It's deeply instinctive, and we look to the animals, and you'll often hear me talk about the animals and looking to our animal brothers and sisters, whether it's birds or mama bear and her cubs, or different creatures that you can see. You don't teach a cat how to take care of its kittens unless there's been some trauma there, and then maybe there's some healing required for the bonding. But if the bonding happens, the instincts are there. So it's about awakening these instincts. And we do that in our relationship with the caregivers that we're supporting. And we can only awaken those instincts if they feel safe as well, and that we are their compass point, and we give this sense of leading the way. And how, you know, I love that Mary said she trusts me. That's, you know what, that's the biggest compliment anyone could ever give me. That is, you just, like, you meet such a deep need in me to know that I'm trusted, because I'm certainly not perfect, but if you trust me, it just, that's everything. You know, and caregivers need to feel that sense of confidence, that we have that sense of confidence in them too, that we trust that they're going to find their way through. And I love this, and this comes from the research on resiliency and neuroplasticity. Soft heart is the key to resilient youth, which means neuroplasticity. Vulnerable emotions can be felt. We can cry. We can say we're scared. We can feel all of it, and we're not compartmentalizing emotions into negative and positive and good and bad. But you know, life, we're emotional beings. We're complex. So those are some of the things we talk about, and just sort of softening it all for caregivers initially, just bringing it back, softening it, inviting them in. Encouraging them, and just taking some of that pressure off, I think, is so important. I feel like I just talked a lot.
Oh, it's perfect. We have a couple questions and comments from our community here, and one of them from Ursula. I just wanted to highlight. I really appreciate how this program seems to draw parallels between attachment theory and long-known ways of being for Indigenous communities. Instinctive and speaks to the heart. I couldn't agree more. So I just wanted to pass that point along. And then Mary has an interesting question, which is, good morning. I've had a wish and goal of opening a center for youth and family wellness. I wanted to ask if you could give advice on what I could do to make sure I'm offering a space for holistic healing to occur. Is there anything you could share with me that help guide me towards this journey for opening up a space? So I guess just like kind of general words of guidance or encouragement.
For me, I think we just opened up a new building called Healing Spirit House, and Chanel can do the language.
Well, I am not a speaker at all, but my best is our new building name is Hai Huat Shwahale Lelam, which means Healing Spirit House.
So we opened up in February of last year, and a lot of intention was put into the relationship with Coquitlam First Nation, who we are working on their traditional territory, and we're guided by that, and then also guided by community needs. So I think asking and seeking and like we've been talking about, the community has the answers. We just need the space they need the space to say what their needs are.
Awesome. Yeah, so just look to community for guidance on that, eh?
Yeah.
Great. Okay, so we will, I'll just go next slide here. Okay.
We talked about that one, so we can probably pop to the next one just in the interest.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
The next slide.
Yay. So this is our program schematic in a nutshell, and that beautiful image of the people and the heart in the center was created by Splash. She did such a wonderful job. So at the center, so we can talk sort of about the whole program framework with this image. At the center of the circle, surrounded by the village, is the heart of the child. Well, and actually the heart of the caregiver as well. And what we're aiming for is that the relationships or the attachment is a scientific word, and I kind of wish that I'd change that to togetherness, and I might want to do that at some point, but that they are attached, that the relationships are there, that there's that warmth, that they feel cared for and they feel held by their adults, that there's resilience there, that they're able to bounce back from adversity, that things happen in life, but it doesn't harden them, that they grow as a result of it and continue to emerge and reach their potential, and that they're feeling beings, that they can feel all their emotions, the whole spectrum of emotions, from the ones that we would, from joy to pain. That's part of the human lived experience. It's not about getting rid of any of this. It's about developing the capacity to be with it all. And so that's sort of what we're aiming for in that whole person development and development of the heart and the whole youth in a balanced way, surrounded by, and you'll notice that the little people in the circle, there's a mix of people. So you've got females and males and adolescent-sized people and small people, because it's the village. It's looking to the whole village as much as we can. That they use natural village of attachment, and that is the circle of care. And around the outside, you see 4 terms and their words. And we've talked a lot about this in the program, that these are just intuitive words to name and make conscious things that we have always done and that we will always do as human beings. And if you look across all cultures and civilizations, there are certain relationship things we do, rituals that we do, that we were never meant to be conscious of. We were never meant to talk about them. And I'll often say, in the long ago, you wouldn't catch our elders sitting around talking about the need for relationship. That would be ludicrous. You know, it just was. It just was. But because we've been impacted by different systems of thought, we have lost our way a little bit in some cases. The knowledge is still there deep within, and when we talk about it, most people will say, I knew that to be true, and I'll say, well, we're not telling you anything you don't already know. All we're doing is reawakening what is in you, what you know to be true, and we're giving you just very intuitive words to make conscious certain things that are very, very powerful in relationships with everyone, but especially with youth. And so we deconstruct and unpack and talk about and give lots of rich examples of how these things are done in a cultural context. We actually dedicate a session to collecting rituals, bridging rituals, matchmaking rituals, tears and grieving rituals. And I'm not going to give away any more because that's I'd give away. You've got to have some mystery to it all. But I say that these are just words because we have to find a word, and we don't want it to be a medical word or a pathologizing word. We just need an intuitive word that speaks to the heart, that reminds us, oh yeah, this is really important in terms of relationships and togetherness and being together. And we're all so busy, we don't do these things anymore, and we wonder why things aren't working the way they're meant to work. And then around the outside is what is holding it all together are cultural rituals and rites of passage. And we chose the word rituals because rituals vary from culture to culture. They certainly characterize a given culture, but rituals are things that we do that are repetitive and that we don't necessarily ask why we do it. We just do it because we know we do it. It's good practice and it's always been done. And we talk a lot about this in the 8 sessions, and we give lots of rich examples. And I think just as a little taster for this group, if I could draw attention to one of the most basic family rituals that and community rituals that you will find in every culture in the world that we're actually losing. It's becoming a little bit extinct. I wonder if anyone can guess what that might be. What is something that we all do that we're not doing as much anymore? That's important. All sorts of great stuff. Meals. Bingo. Yeah. So the family eating ritual, mealtime ritual. You know, it's a ritual. It's something we do, and we don't do it just for the food. We do it because when we gather around a table and we're nurtured by the food someone has prepared for us, all these other beautiful things occur in that space. We're not thinking about all those things. It's not like we sit down and say, oh, we're gonna sit down at the meal and we're gonna feel our feels and we're gonna have a laugh and we're gonna make eye contact and we're gonna spend time together and maybe we'll talk about how hard the day was, or we'll tell a story, or this will happen or that will happen. You know, these things are meant to be unconscious, and that's what makes them safe, is because we're not aiming directly at anything. It's the most natural thing in the world. So that's all I'm going to say for now, because I want to leave some things left unsaid. But we dive into these things in a very rich way. That's it. That's it in a nutshell. I think that's our last slide, isn't it, Cole? I think that, oh, beautiful. Beautiful. Yeah, I did a lot of research on rituals as well, and I talked about that throughout the program. I've got some lovely books, but it's fascinating stuff. What I'd love to do is just give Chanel and Mary an opportunity to share any sort of reading thoughts they might have.
For me, I just, like I said earlier, I'm super excited about the program and what it has the potential to offer, and really thankful that we were able to get Denise at the Maples with us, and you bring such immense knowledge, and you're so generous. So I just want to acknowledge you for that. And Chanel, you walking along this journey with Denise has been great, and I just really look forward to the work that you guys bring to communities, and thank you.
I guess just in reflection, I would think just a little bit of sharing that as I'm new to this journey, I'm new learning, gathering our medicine, but as we go through the program and every week, I'm thinking about, oh my gosh, this makes so much sense. And I'm thinking about the youth that I work very closely with. And essentially with Denise, I can be like, well, what about this situation? Or, you know, this is something that happened, and I'm finding the answers and I'm finding my way, just even in my role here at the Maples. And so I just really want to encourage you, if you have the time and the ability to join our online session, I think that I would just love to see you there so that we can go on this journey together.
Great, beautiful. Thank you all very much. I really appreciated all your words, and learning more about this program's been fantastic for me. For anybody that's interested, we've posted the links in the chat box. They're right there. But again, if you miss them or whatever, they'll go out in an email, and they will also accompany this video when it comes online. Yeah, from the bottom of my heart, thank you all three of you. I really appreciate getting to know you, Mary and Chanel and Denise. It was wonderful to connect again. One last quick plug for May. We have an update. Our session on May 12th with the title Shelter in the Storm, Housing Security in the Time of a Pandemic. We're really looking forward to that, and we hope that you guys will all join us for that session. We have a few others throughout the rest of the month of May, but there will be no learning circles next week. So we hope to see everybody again in a few weeks' time. And yeah, thank you all very much for joining us. Until next time, bye.
Thank you.